Close your eyes and imagine stepping into a warm, bustling kitchen in 1954. The air is thick with the scent of bubbling casseroles, sizzling skillets, and freshly baked biscuits. Back then, dinner wasn't just food, it was a moment that brought the whole family together. From creamy chicken and dumpling casserole that could soothe the hardest day, to lobster Newburg supreme that felt like a ticket to high society, every dish had a story, a purpose, and a price tag that would make us gasp today. These weren't just recipes, they were little time capsules from America's golden age of home cooking. And today, we're going to open them all, one by one. If you love uncovering these forgotten flavors, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a single bite of history. Now, which of these treasures will steal your heart, and maybe even your stomach, first? What made this humble chicken dish the ultimate comfort food in small-town America? Step into 1952, a cozy kitchen with floral curtains, a percolator humming in the background, and a pot of chicken simmering gently on the stove. In the post-war years, chicken was affordable, filling, and, when paired with dumplings, could stretch to feed a hungry family of 6. Betty Crocker's test kitchen described this casserole as Sunday supper in a single dish. It began with a whole chicken, boiled until tender, the broth saved like liquid gold. The meat was shredded and layered in a buttered casserole dish, then bathed in a creamy sauce made from that very broth, thickened with flour, enriched with milk, and seasoned with celery salt and black pepper. But the magic? The dumplings. Light, biscuit-like pillows made from flour, baking powder, salt, and shortening, moistened with just enough milk to form a soft dough. They were spooned over the bubbling chicken mixture, ready to bake until puffed and golden. In those days, the cost of making this casserole was under $1.25, about $15 today. It wasn't fancy, but it was filling, and the smell alone could draw every kid in the neighborhood to your table. Mrs. Henderson from Topeka swore it saved her marriage because her husband came home early every Wednesday just for it. At church potlucks, it was gone in minutes. At family tables, it meant love, thrift, and togetherness in every bite. Today's quick-fix versions can't quite match the depth of flavor from a slow-simmered bird and homemade dumplings. But one taste of this 1950s classic, and you'll know why it's been treasured for generations. So grab your apron, because we're bringing back the chicken and dumpling casserole exactly as it was meant to be. How did a humble can of tuna become a weeknight hero in 1950s America? Step into 1954, neon diner signs glowed outside, but inside most homes, dinner was a one-pan affair. The post-war boom meant more women working, less time for slow roasts, and the rise of convenient canned goods. Tuna, cheap, protein-packed, and shelf-stable, was a star ingredient in every pantry. Betty Crocker's test kitchen promoted the tuna and rice skillet as the 15-minute miracle meal. It started with a knob of butter melting in a cast-iron skillet, releasing the scent of diced onions and celery. Leftover white rice was tossed in, soaking up flavor before a splash of evaporated milk turned everything creamy. Then came the tuna, flaked straight from the can, its briny richness pairing perfectly with the rice. A handful of frozen peas or chopped pimentos added pops of color. A pinch of paprika gave the dish that golden warmth families loved. The beauty? No oven, no fuss, just a hearty, stick-to-your-ribs dinner on the table fast. In 1954, this skillet cost under 80 cents to make, about $9 today, feeding 4 people generously. It was the ultimate budget meal, beloved by bachelors, busy moms, and anyone with a single burner to cook on. Mrs. Whitaker from Des Moines famously said, "It was the only night I didn't hear when's dinner ready." Because it was ready before they could ask. Kids loved it, husbands swore by it, and neighbors asked for the recipe, claiming it was better than takeout. Today, tuna casseroles still exist, but this skillet version, fast, flavorful, and fuss-free, is a time capsule of mid-century ingenuity. Grab a skillet, open a can, and let's relive the comfort of the tuna and rice skillet exactly as 1954 intended. What made this bubbling beef and pasta casserole the ultimate crowd pleaser in 1950s America? Step into 1956, the era of chrome kitchen chairs, polka-dot aprons, and Sunday suppers that could feed an army. The beef and macaroni bake was more than a recipe, it was a promise, one pan, a little effort, and enough to keep every stomach full and happy. Betty Crocker's test kitchen crafted it as a feed crowd wonder. Ground beef was browned in a deep skillet until sizzling, filling the kitchen with that unmistakable aroma. Chopped onions and green peppers joined in, softening into the beef and releasing a sweet, earthy perfume. Then came the sauce, canned tomatoes, a splash of tomato paste, and just enough sugar to balance the tang. A sprinkle of oregano and garlic powder gave it a hint of Italian flair. Meanwhile, elbow macaroni, cooked just until tender, waited patiently. The magic happened in the casserole dish. Layers of beefy sauce and macaroni alternated like stripes on a flag, each one dusted with shredded cheddar or mozzarella. The top layer was a blanket of cheese, sprinkled with breadcrumbs for a golden crunch. Baked until bubbly at the edges and toasty on top, it emerged from the oven like a masterpiece. In 1956, a full pan cost about $1.25, around $14 today, and could feed 8 hungry guests. It was perfect for potlucks, family gatherings, and drop-by neighbors. Mrs. Franklin from Ohio swore by it for PTA meetings, saying, "It was the one dish I could count on to have everyone asking for seconds, whether they liked each other or not." Today's quick pasta bakes might be faster, but they can't beat the soul-warming nostalgia of the beef and macaroni bake, a dish that proved hearty, homemade, and humble could also be unforgettable. How did Golden Crisp croquettes turn leftover chicken into a dinner fit for company? Step into 1953. The Eisenhower years, when thrift met elegance in the American kitchen. Chicken croquettes were a housewife's secret weapon, born from leftovers, transformed into something so good you'd swear it came from a fancy hotel menu. In Betty Crocker's test kitchen, the process started with yesterday's roast chicken. The meat was finely chopped, then folded into a thick, velvety white sauce, made with butter, flour, and milk whisked until smooth. A pinch of nutmeg, a splash of cream, and a sprinkle of parsley turned humble poultry into something luxurious. The mixture was cooled, shaped into neat ovals or patties, then carefully rolled through a 3-step breading, flour, beaten egg, and crisp breadcrumbs. The breading wasn't just for crunch, it sealed in the creamy center, creating that irresistible contrast between crisp shell and tender filling. Fried in hot shortening until golden on all sides, they emerged looking like little treasures. Served with a ladle of chicken gravy or a squeeze of fresh lemon, they could sit proudly next to mashed potatoes and buttered green beans on any dinner table. Back then, a plate of chicken croquettes cost about 60 cents for a family of 4, less than $7 today. They were the ideal answer to stretching a Sunday bird into a Monday feast. Mrs. Henderson from Kansas swore they saved her marriage, joking that her husband could forgive any burnt pie as long as croquettes were on the table. At church luncheons, they disappeared so quickly, hostesses learned to make double batches. Modern kitchens might skip the deep fry, but in the 1950s, that golden crunch meant you'd done something special. Chicken croquettes weren't just dinner, they were proof that resourcefulness could be downright delicious. What made this humble pork and bean bake the ultimate comfort dish of the 1950s? Step into 1954. A time when casseroles ruled the dinner table and the scent of slow-baked beans could bring the whole neighborhood to your doorstep. Pork and bean casserole wasn't just a meal, it was a warm hug in a dish, built from pantry staples and a little creative flair. In Betty Crocker's test kitchen, the base began with canned pork and beans, already rich with a smoky sweetness. To this, diced salt pork or bacon was added for extra depth, sizzling just enough to release that savory aroma. Then came the flavor boosters, a spoon of molasses, a squirt of ketchup, a dash of mustard, and just a whisper of vinegar for balance. Some homemakers like to toss in chopped onions or bell peppers for freshness. The mixture was poured into a deep casserole dish, topped with strips of bacon laid in neat rows, because presentation mattered, even for a humble bin bake. Then came the magic, a slow bake at a moderate temperature, allowing flavors to meld and the top to caramelize into a glossy, irresistible layer. By the time it came out of the oven, the bacon was crisp, the beans were tender, and the sauce had thickened into pure comfort. Back then, this hearty dish cost barely 40 cents a serving, about $5 today, and could feed a family of 6 with bread and a simple salad on the side. Mrs. Turner from Ohio claimed her pork and bean casserole could make a hungry farmhand forget the day's troubles. At community potlucks, you could always tell who brought it, the empty dish was the first clue. Today's quick microwave meals can't match the soul of this 1950s classic, slow, sweet, smoky, and made to share. How did shrimp, noodles, and a creamy sauce become the star of 1950s dinner parties? Step into 1957. It's Saturday night, the neighbors are coming over, and you want a dish that feels fancy but won't keep you chained to the stove. Enter the shrimp and noodle bake, a creamy, golden casserole that turned mid-century kitchens into miniature seaside resorts. It all started with tender egg noodles, boiled until just shy of done so they could soak up flavor in the oven. The sauce was the real magic, a smooth, velvety blend of butter, flour, and milk whisked into a bechamel, then enriched with a generous handful of shredded cheddar or Swiss cheese. A splash of sherry or white wine gave it a grown-up elegance. The shrimp? In those days, fresh was rare inland, so home cooks used high-quality canned or frozen shrimp, thawed, drained, and patted dry. They'd be gently folded into the sauce along with the noodles, plus a scattering of sautéed mushrooms, celery, and sometimes green peas for color. Everything went into a buttered casserole dish, and the topping had to impress, a layer of buttered breadcrumbs, sometimes mixed with parmesan, for a perfectly crisp crown. As it baked, the sauce thickened, the shrimp turned tender, and the breadcrumb crust turned golden brown. In 1957, this dish cost about $1.10 per serving, about $12 today, making it a special occasion meal for many families. It was the kind of casserole you'd bring out when company was over, served with a light salad and a chilled glass of white wine for the adults. Mrs. Langley from Connecticut claimed her shrimp and noodle bake made the whole block think I'd been to culinary school. Really, it was just smart cooking with a touch of glamour. One bite, and you'll understand why this bake had mid-century America hooked. What made layers of potatoes and ham the ultimate comfort dish in post-war America? Step into 1954. The war was over, families were growing, and dinner tables were once again filled with hearty, home-baked meals. One of the shining stars was ham and scalloped potatoes, a dish so simple, yet so satisfying, it became a staple of Sunday dinners and church potlucks alike. It began with russet potatoes, peeled and sliced paper thin. Home cooks didn't have fancy slicers, so the trick was patience, each slice uniform for even cooking. These were layered in a buttered baking dish with cubes of leftover ham, the salty-sweet kind that often came from a holiday roast. The magic was in the creamy sauce. A classic white bechamel, melted butter whisked with flour and warm milk, was seasoned with salt, pepper, and just a pinch of paprika for warmth. Some cooks added shredded cheddar or Swiss for extra richness, while others swore by a splash of evaporated milk for that silky texture. Layer after layer, potatoes and ham were tucked under a blanket of sauce, then topped with breadcrumbs or extra cheese for a bubbly, golden crust. As it baked, the sauce seeped into the potatoes, the ham infused its smoky flavor, and the kitchen filled with the aroma of pure comfort. In the 1950s, this dish cost under 75 cents to make, stretching leftovers into a meal that could feed a family of 6. It wasn't just frugal, it was love served on a plate. Mrs. Whitaker from Kansas said, "If I didn't make this on Sundays, my kids thought something was wrong." And maybe that's why ham and scalloped potatoes still feels like home, because it was never just about feeding people, but about making them feel cared for. How did a leftover holiday turkey inspire one of America's most elegant casseroles? Step into 1956. Thanksgiving was over, the fridge was full of cold turkey, and Betty Crocker's test kitchen had just the answer: turkey Tetrazzini. Born from an early 1900s restaurant creation named after opera star Louisa Tetrazzini, the 1950s home version turned holiday scraps into a creamy, glamorous dinner. It started with spaghetti, not the marinara kind, but long strands cooked until just tender, ready to soak up a luscious sauce. That sauce began with butter and flour whisked into a silky roux, then enriched with chicken or turkey broth, milk, and a generous handful of shredded parmesan. Some homemakers added a splash of sherry for sophistication, others, a pinch of nutmeg for warmth. Shredded turkey was folded into the sauce, along with sliced mushrooms sautéed in butter until golden and fragrant. Then came the spaghetti, tossed gently so every strand was coated in that rich, savory blend. In a buttered casserole dish, it was all layered and topped with breadcrumbs kissed with melted butter and more parmesan. Baked until the edges bubbled and the topping turned a deep golden brown, it was a dish that looked like a splurge, but really stretched holiday leftovers into another memorable meal. In the 1950s, a full turkey Tetrazzini for a family of 6 could be made for under $1, an elegant bargain. Mrs. Carpenter of Ohio recalled, "We had it every year the Saturday after Thanksgiving. My husband thought I'd spent hours on it, little did he know it was just turkey and noodles in disguise." Today, turkey Tetrazzini remains a lesson in making something extraordinary out of the ordinary, a casserole that sings, just like the opera star who inspired it. How did one skillet become the secret weapon of busy 1950s homemakers? Step into 1956, kitchen smelled of butter, onions, and Sunday supper, even on a Tuesday night. The chicken and rice skillet wasn't just a recipe, it was a lifesaver for families trying to stretch $1 while still eating like kings. It began with bone-in chicken pieces, breasts, thighs, or whatever was on sale, seasoned with salt and pepper, then browned in a well-loved cast-iron skillet until the skin turned golden and crisp. The chicken was set aside while onions, celery, and sometimes green peppers softened in the leftover drippings, soaking up every bit of flavor. Long-grain rice was added next, sizzling as it absorbed the buttery base before chicken broth was poured in, releasing a cloud of comforting steam. A pinch of paprika or thyme gave the dish its warm, home-style aroma. The browned chicken pieces were nestled back into the rice, the skillet covered tightly, and the whole thing simmered gently until the rice was tender and had soaked up all the rich, savory juices from the chicken. In some homes, peas or mushrooms were stirred in during the last few minutes to make it a complete meal in one pan. In 1950s dollars, the entire dish could be made for under 60 cents, a bargain compared to restaurant dining. Families loved it not just for the taste, but for the way it filled the house with the smell of home. Mrs. Langley from Ohio claimed, My husband could smell it from the driveway, and he'd come in grinning. We never had leftovers, no matter how much I made. The chicken and rice skillet remains a symbol of simple, soulful cooking, proof that the most memorable meals are often the easiest to make.